Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to another episode of On the Couch with Creatives. I say good morning because we're here in the UK, but good afternoon or good evening if you're anywhere else in the world. I'm Melanie Perry.
And I'm Julie Hyde-Mew.
And this is On the Couch with Creatives. Fans and followers of our show will know that we're part of the Creatives Group, the private network for creative professionals everywhere. Together, we help you to create at your best, connect you with like-minded individuals, therefore helping you to grow your creative business. If that sounds like a good idea to you and you'd like to find out more, please don't hesitate to contact either Julie or myself after the show. We would be delighted to talk to you. But this is On the Couch. So Julie, who do we have on the couch today?
Well, on the couch today, we have Carolyn MAYLING, and many film, TV, and theatre stars, many of them Oscar and BAFTA award winners, will know her from her days of teaching at Redroofs School for the Performing Arts in Maidenhead in Berkshire, which was founded by her mother in 1947. But Carolyn is also the author of The Future is Rosie, which describes the heartbreak of losing a child and how she and her family coped with unimaginable loss and learned to live again. Let's get her on the couch. Hello, Carolyn, and welcome to On the Couch with Creatives. It's lovely to have you here.
It's lovely to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Well, let's start off with your history of Redroofs. Tell us a little bit more about that. We know your mother founded it in the 1940s. So tell us a bit more about your career there.
Sure. So my mum founded the school in 1947. She was fresh out of RADA, actually. And apparently she was the youngest pupil ever to have been at RADA, so she says. Anyway, but she founded the school in 1947 in London, and then she bought Redroofs in Maidenhead in 1965. She bought Ivor Novello's old country house, and then moved up from London, transferring the school up to Maidenhead. And she set up the school, and it kind of grew bigger than the London school. So then she shut the London school and concentrated her efforts on the Maidenhead school, and it literally grew and grew. And I actually trained originally as a dancer. She sent me away to a ballet boarding school when I was 10. But I was kind of, I stayed kind of very attached to Redroofs, and then having come out of school at 16, 17, I did a bit of acting and stuff, and then decided I wanted to teach. So we kind of grew the school together, and then my sister came into the business, my younger sister, and it's just very much family business. And now it's run by my sister, myself, and my daughter Ellie, my older daughter. And it's a very sort of family concern. And yeah, we have a large cohort of children. We used to have a full-time school. We don't have that anymore. We have a large cohort of lovely kids, and they come in after school and weekends and do all the performing arts, and we put on loads of shows, and yeah, that's kind of what we do.
It's quite a generational thing.
Yeah. So yeah, my daughter also trained. She went off to dance college and stuff, and then decided that also she preferred the teaching side. We all kind of like to be in control, really. We're a bit of control freaks. But anyway, so we run this very kind of like creative school. We do musical theatre, we do drama, we do dance, and we do loads of shows. And now, of course, we do loads of charity shows. We'll get to that later, which we do in aid of my charity, Rosie's Rainbow.
Yeah, my son James went to Redroofs for quite a few. I don't think he was there quite a year. It was around about just before lockdown or just after things started opening. I can't remember now, but it was around that time, and he really enjoyed it. And it was a lovely school, and it was a lovely feel of the school. It wasn't pretentious, it was it was very welcoming, and
we sort of go out of our way to be welcoming and to be absolutely on the ground with the kids. So we're always there. Me and my sister and my daughter, we're just there, and so we know all the kids, we know all the parents, and it's lovely, I think.
Yeah, it is.
It's a good area to be in because, of course, you know, the Slough, Marlow, Bray area is really the hub of the British film industry now.
Yeah. And so obviously we've got Pinewood almost next door, and we've got Shepperton, sort of easy striking distance and stuff. And we've got an agency, so we do provide kids for sort of film and television and so on, and theatre.
Now, do you take anybody, or do the children have to go through an audition process in order to get a place in your school?
No, we're completely inclusive. We have anyone who wants to come. I mean, we have got elite teams and stuff, which, you know, and we do select for those, but the doors are always open for everybody. And it's not everybody who wants to be an actor or a performer. Kids come for lots of different reasons. They come because because maybe they're lacking confidence. They come because their mates come. They come because it's a lovely hobby, or they come because they want to make a career of it. There's so many different reasons why they want to join us. And honestly, they make friends for life. It's just brilliant.
Yeah, it's a lovely school. And it's a lovely situated. No, it's a lovely venue. You know, the school is really lovely, and it's quite easy to get to as well, which is what we were looking at.
Okay.
And the gold team, your gold team, you know, when we used to come and James used to do his little bit of musical theatre and dance.
Okay.
You know, that we'd see the gold teams going, and then we'd hear them all bursting into song, and they just sound so professional. They're really talented bunch.
Yeah, they just absolutely love it. And the gold team, actually, they're going to be at the O2 this autumn. We're taking the elites and the gold team, and they're going to be performing at the O2. And then a few months ago, we did a show at the Shaftesbury, and you know, it's just all singing, all dancing all the time. That's what we do. We're going to Disney Paris as well with a bunch of children as well. We've got one of the big stages, and they're doing a 20-minute performance next April.
Wow.
So now, who are the Oscar and BAFTA winners that have gone through your school?
Oh, well, we've got Kate Winslet. So Kate was with us for 7 years. She came to us at about 10. And in fact, she came from a family of actors and lived in the Reading area. And she came to us when she was 10, and she was actually at our full-time school, and she was our head girl, actually. Amazing actress, and one of a cohort of very, very talented kids. So it wasn't just her in her year group. A lot of them kind of went on to do some really good stuff. And then we've got who else have we got? Chris Marshall from our family, and Paradise. What's it called?
Paradise. Yeah.
Yeah, that one. And Danny Harmer, who's Tracy Beaker. We've got Joanne Froggatt, who's Downton Abbey, and is just absolutely wonderful. She's actually a patron of my charity. Lucy Benjamin, EastEnders, came to me when she was 7. And so she's a very, very dear friend now. She, you know, and she came in when she was 7 on a scholarship and stayed, and she's now, don't know, 40 something. And she actually called her daughter Rosie, actually. I'll get to that later. And she's also a patron of the charity. There are lots and lots and lots. And lots of them kind of went into sort of allied careers as well. So we've got directors, producers, casting directors, dancers. We've got Maz Murray, who's star of Mamma Mia, and her family, her sister Gina, who's on tour with Hairspray, playing the lead. You know, there are literally loads. Yeah, and also loads who didn't and decided to do completely different things, but now we have the children and the grandchildren, so it's brilliant. So we get like second generation. We had one last week actually, and Sam said, "Come here, as my sister, come here, look who's here." And it was this guy with his daughter, and it was so lovely just to have that second generation coming through.
Yeah, I'll imagine.
Yeah.
Now tell us what made you, let's talk about Rosie now, and what made you decide to write your memoir?
Okay, so Rosie, my daughter, we were obviously a show busy sort of family, and she was born into that. And she was a young performer. She'd been on television, done films and so on. When she was 10, she suddenly, out of the blue, became ill. And she was eventually, after many months, diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called vasculitis. And she was in panto at the time when she became ill, and she had to drop out of the pantomime, which she was gutted about. And anyway, she became ill. She was eventually diagnosed after being misdiagnosed for quite a few months, and ended up in the John Radcliffe Children's Hospital, where she became a long-term patient. So from being a creative, normal family, doing really having a really busy life and doing lots of crazy things, we just, we became inmates in this situation in the John Radcliffe, and it was like being in a different time zone. It was just the most difficult thing ever. Rosie wasn't like clearly ill all the time, although she was in intensive care for a long time, and she got really fed up because she was a very active child, and she said, "There's nothing to do here, Mum. She'd exhausted all the toys in the playroom. She had nothing to do, and she was looking at all these children. She was on a ward actually with a lot of children on oncology. So there were a lot of children with cancer with their hair falling out and so on. She thought that she was lucky because she still had her hair. And she said, "Mummy, when I'm better, I'm going to do something to raise money for the children in the hospital so they're never, ever fed up and bored like I am." And
What were her symptoms, though? I mean, obviously she could talk and walk, and
yeah,
what were the symptoms?
well, it manifested itself like a chest infection at the beginning, so it was like breathing problems. And then they realised when they were trying to diagnose it that she had these pulmonary embolisms on the arteries going into her lungs, which was why she couldn't breathe. So it was kind of lung problems, but everything else as well, because autoimmune disease means that the whole body attacks itself, and was very, very scary. And Rosie just loved bright colour and stripes and so on. And she just wasn't the sort of child who just sort of sit around doing nothing. So she said one day to the play specialist at the hospital, "When I'm better, I'm going to make things different for the children in the hospital. I'm going to be putting on shows and raising money." And while she was in there having a lot of very scary stuff done to her, there was no support in place for parents like myself. I wasn't the only one. They were all like me. They were all terrified. There were children whose parents had cancer, parents whose children had cancer. There were, I mean, every sort of disease and things that you can imagine, and there was no support. And I remember one night, I was absolutely terrified. She'd just had a huge operation. And I'd actually locked myself in the ladies because I was literally in bits. And the nurse came and knocked on the door, and she went, "Are you okay in there?" And I went, yeah, I'm fine. And she said, "Come out." And I just said, "Look, your time is supposed to be for the children. It's not supposed to be for the parents. I'm fine." But actually I was anything but fine. Anyway, so eventually, about 6 months later, Rosie came home. She was desperate to go back to school. She was a pupil at Redroofs. She was desperate to go back to school. She came home, and she was at home for 6 days. And on the 6th day, she had a pulmonary hemorrhage, and we managed to get her back into John Radcliffe. And it was just all too much, and she had a cardiac arrest. Ended up in intensive care on life support. And then her body kind of gave up, and after 11 days, we had to turn the machine off. Which
How
was
old was she when she died?
11.
Oh,
She was just 11 and a half. And she had an older sister, Ellie, who was 3 years older. So Ellie was 14 when all this happened. And so the time in hospital was just impossible. My ex-husband, as he now is, was going back and forth from the hospital. I was living in the hospital most of the time with Rosie. And he was trying to look after Ellie, my older daughter, and try and keep things going, and bring family up and down from the hospital. It was just an impossible time. Anyway, so after they turned the machine off in May 2003, and there was once again there was no support. There was no bereavement support. There was in the hospital there was a woman at the end of a corridor who we were kind of ushered down to, who said, "Oh, here's a pile of papers on how to bury your child," and literally sent us off down the M40, and we were kind of thrust into this kind of back into the normal world where everything was just like the bottom had fallen out of our world, and nothing was ever normal and never has been again. So anyway, so the day after Rosie died, my husband had a heart attack from the stress of it all, and ended up in hospital for a couple of weeks, and then came out the day before the funeral and we had the funeral, and then we had a celebration of her life in our theatre. We had a theatre at that time in Ascot. And in the afternoon, at the celebration, we invited all her friends and so on to come and say poems or whatever they wanted to do in her honour. And I stood in the foyer and I was saying to it, I said to a friend, I've got to create something whereby Rosie is never going to be forgotten. I've got to have a legacy, because Rosie wanted to do something for the hospital. My child was full of colour and vibrancy. Is that the word? And I just can't allow her little life to have been for nothing. And then as I said that, I looked outside the theatre and there's this massive double rainbow over the top of the theatre. And I just went, that's Rosie. It's coloured stripes, which is what she used to wear, coloured stripes all the time. She wore stripy tights. And I said, that's it, it's Rosie's Rainbow. And I said, she's telling me to set up Rosie's Rainbow. So I set up Rosie's Rainbow Fund. And the first thing I did, I contacted the hospital and I said, what can we do to set something up as quickly as possible so we can start to make change? And they said, how about music? And I went, okay, because Rosie was really musical. So I sourced a music therapist, and the charity kicked off. And Rosie's Rainbow Fund now has 4 music therapists. We work out of John Radcliffe Hospital at Oxford and Stoke Mandeville at Aylesbury, because they've got a lot of spinal injury, children on spinal injuries unit and so on. And at Royal Berks at Reading. And so we're very, very busy. We've got these 4 music therapists. And then I set up a parent support service so that parents like me never have to be unsupported ever again. So we have a wonderful aromatherapist, actually, and she looks after the parents at John Radcliffe. And when they're at their very lowest ebb, she gets them away from the bed and gives them a lovely aromatherapy massage, and they can offload and share their problems, and she's a listening ear. And then not long after Rosie died, we again with the bereavement support thing, we just didn't know, we had no support in place for us. And then a lady turned up at my front door one day, literally out of the blue, and she said, my name's Jenny Thomas and I'm a bereavement support counsellor. And she became my bereavement support. And then now she came onto the charity, and now she leads our bereavement support services. So we now have parents looked after when they very sadly lose a child or children. So
I know that this came from your daughter's death, but that is actually a very beautiful story. And the fact that her life was not in vain.
Yeah, that's right.
It is very amazing what you've done in her name.
Well, I met after Rosie died so many people that didn't cope. And I went along to it was a bereavement support meeting a few weeks after she died, and there were a load of people in this room sitting there like almost rocking, and it was like years after their child had died. And I thought, I'm never going to be like that. I'm just not going to do that. I'm going to make something positive so that when eventually I get there to where Rosie is, I'll be able to be proud of what I've done for her. And I just believe that we're doing that now, and we've continued to do it. So yeah.
I think it's marvellous. It's really, really marvellous. I've got goosebumps. Losing a child, I mean, as a parent myself, the thought, I've only got one child, and he's 10. Well, yeah, he's 10, will be 11 in January. And it is my worst fear. It is my worst fear. If anything happened to him, I think I would go completely and utterly insane. And the fact that I can relate to that, parents just sitting, rocking years afterward and almost just losing their minds. And the fact that you are helping these people. And as you say, I think it's absolutely terrible that in the mainstream sort of hospital services, I know resources are limited, but to have no support for parents that are going through this and watching their children die in front of their eyes. I mean, God.
There was literally nothing at that time. And, I mean, we've got children at John Radcliffe who've been there for years. Some of them have been there since they were born, and they're now 6, and these parents, they have to live that nightmare,
And what What kind of therapy do you give the children through music? What exactly do you do? You take in trumpets and drums and teach
Yeah.
them how to play the keyboards?
Yeah, so we've got so our music therapists have these big trolleys, and they're full of instruments like drums and rattles and guitars and anything that you don't blow, actually, because you can't have anything that's kind of it can be that you blow because of germs.
Mm.
They go around, they identify the children who are mostly in need that day. The play specialists help to identify the children, and he goes around, or they go around the beds, or we have a sort of area in the play rooms and stuff. And when the children are very ill, he plays by the beds. And, some of these children, they're non-verbal, they can't talk for whatever reason. And the music just connects with them. It connects to the heart of them, It's amazing. And then sometimes we have children who are very depressed and don't want to do anything at all. And we had a child who hadn't been out of bed for months, actually, and this little boy. And the nurses were at a loss about what to do. And Andy, our music therapist, said it was just amazing because within half an hour of him visiting this little chap, he was out of bed on the drums, and then he got better.
Wow.
Music is such a powerful medium. It can motivate children who don't want to do anything. It can calm children down before a very terrifying operation. I wish I'd been there when Rosie was there, because it would have made a world of difference to her, I think. Yeah, so it's a powerful thing, and you just never know from day to day who's going to be in and what sort of music they're going to need on the day, but it's powerful.
And you decided to write a book about the whole experience.
Yeah, because I'd always been a bit of a diarist, and actually right the way through all my life, actually, I'd kept diaries of sorts, and then I ended up with this massive pile of, it was longer than War and Peace. And everyone had always said, you really ought to write a book. That wasn't the end of the story, by the way. When we set up the services, it goes on, which I'll come to in a minute. But I thought, okay, I'll write a book about it. So I did. Shall I tell you the rest of the story?
Yes, please. Sorry, I'm sorry I interrupted your
No, it's
story.
fine. It's fine. So with the music services running and everything, and Rosie had died, and our house was really empty, and Ellie was just playing sad songs on the piano, and I just thought, one day this idea came into my head. I thought, I've got to have another baby, and I thought, I must be mad. I'm not trying to replace Rosie. Rosie is not replaceable. But what I was desperate to do was to give everyone a future, just to kind of make a reason to be able to go on, really. And I put this to my husband, and he said I was mad, but I would kind of go along. He would go along with it. I was actually 48 by this time, and he said, well, you're probably too old, but if you really want that, then okay. So I went to see the doctor, and the doctor said, well, if you really want this, it's going to be probably IVF, and then referred me. So anyway, so we had this 5-year IVF journey following that. And a few people had said we were nuts to do this, but mostly people were really supportive. And so we went ahead, and we had lots of disappointments, which is it's all in the book. But eventually, after 5 years, I had a little boy when I was 54. I was 54 when I got. So, and it was an amazing journey, and he's just fantastic. He's now 15 and a half, 6 foot, and a golfer, and just kind of very, he kind of lives in the now, and he's doing his GCSEs, and it's all very normal. But he kind of gave us back that he gave us back a future, really.
That's lovely.
And that's all in the book, so it's all documented in the book. So I had this book, and then I had to find a publisher, which was another story. So that went on for some months, and then eventually I found a publisher, and she said, I'd love to publish your book. So we did it, and never looked back. And I've just loved the process. It's been really exciting and really a positive process.
And that's what I love, is turning something that's been so tragic into something very positive. And Rosie's Rainbow Fund, as I remember that from my time at my son's time at Redroofs, I think it's a really, really wonderful thing, and the support, and also a book that will help inspire others who are in a dark place, either because they're going through IVF. I mean, IVF is not an easy journey, and for you to do it at later life, wow, power to you, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, gosh, but anything that gives hope to people,
Yeah.
I'm all for that, and I think it's a wonderful thing. How can people find your book, Carolyn? Where is it on sale?
Well, it's on Amazon, or you can order from any good bookseller, or you can go via my my own website, and I can do a signed copy if that's what you'd like. It's carolynmailing.com. It's a very easy one. And I'm very happy to sign copies or post copies out. It's very easy.
That's wonderful. That's really, really wonderful. I'm sure there'll be lots of orders after this interview.
What would your top tips be for let's start off with children who want to become actors or directors or cameramen at a very early age. They've got their eye on that goal. That is their dream. What tips would you give them?
Tips for them. Get to a class, learn the trade, learn the skills, because, and learn as many skills as you can, because, actors who are just actors are more limited than actors who can sing or dance or play an instrument or whatever it is, or ice skate or whatever it is. And you obviously make contact with lots of people on your journey as well. So yeah, just keep at it if that's something you really, really, really want to do. If you don't really, really want to do it, and there's other things you can do the other things, because it's so tough out there.
Yeah.
And you can just do it for fun, and that's just as positive and just as lovely. But if you really, really believe that's the only thing you can do in life, just go for it.
And for parents going through the grief that you and your family went through, and then pouring it out, almost like it's a catharsis, writing a book about your experiences, what kind of tip would you give to grieving parents?
Seek help. Don't do it on your own. You don't have to grieve alone. It's a really horrible place to be, and there are thousands of us out there. That's kind of why I wrote the book, because I wanted people to feel less alone. I wanted people to feel that there is a support system out there if you look for it. And there are sort of various bodies of, there's Compassionate Friends, there's Rosie's Rainbow Fund, we offer support. There are other sort of charities and so on that do offer support. And there are lots of sort of self-help groups. It's kind of easier to find now because the social media obviously is helpful. It didn't really exist in when it happened to me, because that was back in the early 2000s. But now, just find people out there, and there are so many parents, and you can just share. I shared so much in my darkest nights with a bunch of bereaved parents who I met actually online. And we, in the dead of night, when you think you can't get through another minute of the night, they're there. And they understand, and you can just offload, and you don't have to do it alone. There's
always somebody awake, isn't there?
Always. And I would have my worst moments in the middle of the night when the whole world was asleep. And and there are loads of us. There are sadly loads of bereaved parents out there. It's it's tough.
They say losing a child is probably the worst grief that you will have to bear.
Yeah,
because you don't expect it. They're supposed to bury you. You're not supposed to bury them.
That's right.
So it's always a shock, and yeah, it's unbelievable shock.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Carolyn. It's been very interesting listening to you, and all the best for the charity. That's just amazing. But let's dig a little bit. Let's have a little bit of fun now. Melanie's going to pull out her values jam cards, and she's going to shuffle them and spread them out into a fan, and you're going to choose a value, and then she's going to ask you some very ridiculous questions. And there are no right or wrong answers. You just say what first comes into your head.
I'm really bad at this stuff, just to say.
It's literally, there's no right or wrong answer. It's literally just the first thing. It's one of those first thing that you think of question. So you don't have to think about it too much. It's just the first thing that comes into your head.
There's no rhyme or reason to what you have to say, you know?
Okay, I'm going to run my finger along and you just say stop. Oh, you can say stop when you want me to stop.
Stop. Stop. That's it.
Right, okay, let's have a look. What did you pick? Let's have a look. What did you pick? You picked. Oh, this is a nice one. Inclusion.
Inclusion.
Inclusion. So the value that you picked is inclusion. And again, that works well. Our guests picked some very good cards. And I think for you, everything that you've done, that your values of your school and the charity that you set up, inclusion is very important to you because, you know, to include parents, you know, who feel so alone and have now they've got somewhere to go. I think that's actually quite a good card. Okay, so I'm going to ask you creatively about inclusion then.
Okay, so inclusion, as far as my charity is concerned, I think it's really that we don't actually just only look after parents and children who have got a certain sort of, like, it's not just for children with cancer, it includes everybody. So anyone who has a very ill child, whatever it is that they have, because there are lots of like sort of cancer charities and so on, but there are not that many that are that diverse, so we include everybody. And as far as the school's concerned, as far as including well, yeah, like I said earlier, Redroofs is for everybody. It's not, you know, it's not just for the most talented, it's for everybody.
Yeah. If you could see inclusion as a thing, what would it look like to you, do you think? If it had a shape or a colour or a
it would look like a globe, like a sort of kind of a globe of the world with just like everybody together and included.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot.
A global hug.
Yeah.
Yeah, global hug. That's a good one.
Yeah, I like that. What does it sound like to you?
It sounds like a great big orchestra with lots of different instruments.
Oh, I like that. I like that too. I like that too. I love that. What's the other one that was on here? Feel, sound, look. We've done look. What does it feel like? What does it feel like?
What's it feel like? Like you said, it feels like a hug. It feels like a hug, but for
Yeah, I like that. Big arms around the world, big hug. I can just envisage that. I love that.
Yeah.
Wonderful. That has been amazing, Carolyn. Thank you so much for your time with us this morning. And the details of Rosie's Rainbow Fund have been going across the screen, as have the details of where you can follow and contact Carolyn, and also where you can buy her book. So please do go and check out The Future is Rosie. You will enjoy it. You will need some handkerchiefs or two or three, but it is well worth a read. And so you can get it from Amazon and all good bookshops. So please do go and check it out. And if you've got a child in the Maidenhead area who would like to check out the theatre school, I can personally recommend them wholeheartedly, having had a son who has done a stint, and he might come back. You never know. He goes from one thing to another thing to another thing. So we'll see what happens. But thank you so much for your time today. It's been wonderful to have you on the couch.
And just to say, there's a lot more in the book than what I've told you, and that, you know, it goes on, and so that, you know, there are other chapters. You go, did that actually happen? But yes, it did. So read on, yeah.
Sounds very intriguing.
Well, thank you for coming on the couch with Creatives, Carolyn, and we wish you all the best and hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been really lovely.